In the name of God, Creator, Redeemer, and Sustainer. Amen. I read a story about a family that sometimes takes trips into Washington, D.C., and they go in uniform. Everyone wears the same t-shirt. And it proved to be a good thing one time because they lost their youngest child in the National Gallery of Art. They called his name. They went all around the place 3 times and they could hear giggles, but they could not find him. His other 2 brothers thought it was all quite entertaining. Finally, a woman wise to the ways of children informed them that the missing person was hiding behind a fern, behind a Degas print. So he really had good taste in hiding places. The mystery was solved. The tip-off was the bright orange t-shirt. The informant knew that he must belong to those parents and kids in the same orange t-shirts because they were searching the area diligently. It was important that she knew what she was seeing. Those t-shirts ID'd them as family. Family. My Bible dictionary gives both Old and New Testament definitions of the word. The Old Testament definitions include people that are related somehow by blood, or it could mean the families of the nations. The New Testament is a bit more specific and refers to a family as dwelling together or living at home. Other translations include lineage, nationality, races, and finally, a reference to the whole family, those who are spiritually related to God the Father, who is the author of the spiritual relationship to him as his children. Now, these days, families can be traditional, 2 parents and an average of 2.3 kids. Single parent households, domestic partners with children, grandparents raising grandchildren, and in some instances, several generations under one roof. They can be blended families with step-siblings and half-siblings. And today, you also hear the word family used to describe all kinds of groups: schools, sports teams, in the workplace, in the worship space, and among friends. Family relationships are not as simple as wearing matching t-shirts. Both the Genesis reading and the gospel tell stories about looking beyond the t-shirts, the visual connections. We've heard Joseph's story, his special place in Jacob's heart as the child of his old age, which caused major sibling rivalry. Joseph had a special t-shirt, so to speak, that coat of many colors we heard about last week, and the heart of a dreamer. His brothers have sold him into slavery. Now, years later, we know that the tables are turned, and Joseph has an opportunity for payback. In a time of famine, his birth family has come to him for help. And while he recognizes them, they don't know who he is. He's wearing a different t-shirt. When the brothers return a second time with Benjamin in hand, Joseph, to put it in the vernacular, just plain loses it. He forgets the household rules. He forgets the proper way to deal with strangers, and he forgets Pharaoh. This is his family, his father and brothers, different t-shirts and all. When he urges his siblings to come closer and see who he really is, the light dawns. He forgives them for abandoning him because he knows now that God never abandoned him, that God had used him in this place for this very purpose, to care for his family in their time of need, and to preserve Jacob's legacy. The past is the past. It is time for forgiveness and healing and building trust between this birth family whom he loves and this Pharaoh's household, which ultimately welcomed and honored him. Barriers have fallen. And what about this Jesus? He knows that he has been sent specifically to God's people, God's children by faith. They are family. They all wear the same t-shirts. He's just finished reminding some of those children that how we treat each other is much more important than obeying every single ritualistic rule, than what shows on the outside. And up walks the Canaanite woman, seeking help from this Jewish teacher and healer, a foreigner and a female. And Jesus does ignore her. Wrong t-shirt. But I think he's intrigued by her stubbornness and her refusal to give up. It doesn't matter what the rules say. Her family needs help, and she has faith that this Jesus is the one to provide it, even if it is the crumbs that fall from the master's table, the ones reserved for the dogs. She knows who Jesus is. She recognizes his t-shirt. You know, we forget sometimes that Jesus was fully human as well as divine. He was still feeling his way into this call, this identity. He's going with what he knows. And then he realizes that he's letting the rules control him. He's letting an opportunity to share God's love slip right through his fingers, because this woman doesn't have the right connections. Her t-shirt's the wrong color. He's passing up a chance to grow God's family. In that aha moment, Jesus acknowledges the woman's great faith, and her daughter is healed. In 2006, a man walked into an Amish schoolroom near Lancaster, Pennsylvania, barricaded himself in, and shot 10 little girls, and then shot himself to death. 5 of the girls lived, and 5 died. His name was Charlie Roberts. The Amish are so easily recognized by their dress, their t-shirts, so to say, and well known for their quiet, God-centered life without the amenities of normal American living: cars, electricity, telephones, the internet. Charlie Roberts' family had always respected their Amish neighbors, had a cordial relationship with them. Charlie's dad was heard to say that day, "I will never face my Amish neighbors again." Later that week, when the Roberts family approached the gravesite for Charlie's service, as many as 40 Amish enfolded them in a crescent, a deep sense of love and compassion flowing from them. From that terrible day has come a story of forgiveness and crossing family boundaries that is hard to fathom. Terry Roberts, Charlie's mother, later wrote a book called Forgiven, about the extraordinary bonds between her family and the Amish community. Bonds formed by forgiveness, respect, and trust. And she became the caregiver for Rosanna, one of the most seriously wounded survivors. While neither the Roberts family nor any of the Amish families affected would have wanted this tragedy to happen, the beautiful relationships that have resulted are priceless. Totally different t-shirts on the outside, with the same deep love of God and neighbor inside. A redesigned family of sorts. Families. Life isn't always smooth within them. We squabble over the rules and end up disconnected. But most of the time, we need those love connections. Churches, nations, workplaces, schools, and neighborhoods. Households, joined by faith or ideology or profession or proximity or blood or marriage. Sometimes the rules are so much less important than the relationships. Sometimes we just have to expand the boundaries and let others into our lives. Sometimes we have to look beyond the t-shirts and into the heart. Today, in this time and place, it's hard to do that, to go beyond our comfort zones. This time of COVID-19 pandemic and emerging recognition of seeming inherent racism. We are urged to stay in, stay distanced, stay safe. And at the same time, we see and feel the need to protect ourselves and our loved ones. We miss the love and contact and familiarity of life as we knew it. In the midst of all this, our helper people, to quote Mr. Rogers, are risking their lives in hospitals and stores, at the post office, in all kinds of essential services to keep us going. We are beginning to get a glimpse of the whole human family, gifted perhaps with the time to see the world in a new way through all kinds of social media, to see what is going on far away and right outside our windows. We see instances of generosity and innovation. We see caring, loving, and utterly exhausted hospital personnel. We see new connections and relationships budding and growing, even amidst all the chaos and despair that overwhelm our senses. We see young people and moms and kids, men and women, old and young, all daring to stand up for those who have for so long been disregarded. We are asked to do things we might be uncomfortable with for the good of others, both strangers and neighbors, the good of many whose t-shirts are not only new to us, but may be even confusing and conflicting. If we are able, we are asked to take some risk for the good of God's world, of the whole human family. Are we, God's children, willing to go beyond the edges of our lives in response to his great love and mercy for us? Are we willing, like Joseph, to forget past hurts and disagreements and begin anew? Are we willing, like Jesus, to forget the rules and open the doors to new and unexpected surprises? To live each day with a sense of anticipation and curiosity, of faith and hope? Are we, like the Amish folk in Nickel Mines, Pennsylvania, willing to extend a hand of loving forgiveness and let others experience God's healing love? Just what does God's family look like? Maybe it's time for new t-shirts. Amen.